It takes one time.
Mm.
It takes one incident to blackball all of us. And accountability is coming, whether we want it or not. I think it's a good thing that accountability comes. The standard that's set is, I think, below where it needs to be, just across the board.
Hey, what's up? What's up? Relentless Rejects Podcast, episode 10. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time, if you find value in the show, if you want to support my guest, please share the show. This show is promoted through word of mouth. So get the show out there, get people listening if you find value. My guest today is Logan Hinkle. And as you know, I don't do an in-depth bio. I let the guest do most of the talking. So without further ado, Logan, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Hey, I'm hanging in there, man. You know what it is, babies and dad life and trying to be a good husband while also being an into the job fireman. It's like juggling, swords and knives.
It's a hard balance to find sometimes, man. A lot of us struggle with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I just had a conversation with a dude about how to find that balance, because when you are an into the job fireman and you start going to those conferences, and conferences are popping up everywhere, right? Left and right. You find one. You got a big one where you're at with the First In out there in Little Rock. I still haven't got my way out there. I'm going to, I promise. But the question that was asked to me, and I'll actually throw it out to you, we'll just get this thing kicked off, was being an into the job fireman, going to conferences and teaching and starting to throw yourself out there and have your own platform. How do you balance that life with your family life of being present and available to your family?
It's not just about time balance, right? You hear everybody talk about time, 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 time. What kind of time are you spending with them? Are you just at home and present, or are you invested? Uh, there for a while, it got rough for us because I thought time was enough. It's not. You have to be invested in your family. Go on little trips. One of our favorite things to do is like a day like today where I have to go to work in about an hour and a half or 2 hours. When I wake up, we'll take a family trip to Dairy Queen, go get some ice cream, go drive around. Just little stuff like that where you're spending quality time together doing something, doing an activity of some sort. Just laying around on the couch, just being present. And I don't think it's enough. I saw a lot of improvement in myself as a father, uh, and a lot of improvement in the marriage as well through that. So that's something, especially at a younger age, a lot of us don't realize. I've only been married almost 3 years, but uh, you'll notice a change whenever you start putting quality before quantity in the time you spend with your family.
I love that, man. I love that message because the message or the answer that I kind of gave was, have intentional conversations with your spouse. Be vulnerable and talk to them about why you're so into this and why you have such a passion. Because I believe your spouse truly wants you to be happy, but they also kind of don't get it at first, right? When you're like, I got to go to this conference and talk to this instructor and I'm on this podcast, right? It's like your wife's just like, why? Right? Why do we not treat the fire service as everyone else's 9 to 5 job, right? Where you clock in, you clock out, you go home and you don't think about work until tomorrow. It's an interesting dynamic. I love how you said that it's not just the time, it's what you do at that time. Beautiful.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And
man.
on the topic of like being into the job and going on these conferences, I'm sure a lot of the folks that are going to listen to this have probably, seen me at a conference. I've probably talked to them at a conference. I've traveled pretty extensively as a student, mostly over the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm lucky that my wife understands and gets why I'm so into this. She had she had loss of life of family members from fire. Uh, that's a rabbit hole for a different day, but she understands why I go to all these training events, why I go to these conferences. She's actually going with me. We're going to go down with Nathan Pips and the crew, Spindle Top Fulls crew, down to Port Arthur this fall, in November, down to the For Them conference. She's going to go with me.
All right.
Sit through the lectures, take a bunch of pictures, hang out with everybody, and she enjoys doing stuff like that. Uh, she enjoys getting to see me be passionate about something that I really enjoy doing, which is a blessing. A lot of people don't have that, and it makes it that much harder to be an end of the job fireman. And there is a line to draw where being into the job starts to interfere with your family, and I think that's what we just hit on. Was you can spend a bunch of time at home, like I said, but if you're trying to be way too into the job, you're trying to put the job way before your family, you're not going to get any quality out of it.
Yeah, I love it, man. And I know I jumped the gun and I told you we were gonna do a little bit of introduction and bio, but that dude, I just that hit me because you got like I don't know if that's a high chair or something behind you, and I was like, man, I want to ask him about family and this question that was on my mind. But dude, let's backtrack a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about where you're from and who Logan Hinkle is. Who was Logan before the fire service and how did you get into it?
Man, I was born right down the street from where you live at Kaiser Hospital in downtown Denver. I grew up in Aurora until I was about 3 or 4 years old. Then we moved across the country down to LaGrange, Georgia. Smaller town. I say smaller town. It's like 30, 40,000 people, I think. Everybody knows where Auburn, Alabama is. We were about 30 minutes east of Auburn. Grew up there until I was 8 or 9, I think. Then we moved to Clarksville, Arkansas, Johnson County, River Valley area of Arkansas. I grew up there, went through elementary school, rest of elementary school, middle school, and high school there. I graduated from Lamar High School. Played football, played baseball, did a little bit of college time. Wasn't really the gig for me, right? During my senior year, we actually, for so long, during most of that time, had lived maybe 200 yards. We were across the little highway from the fire station. Uh, and I would get woken up middle of the night by 12, 13 years old. I'd see the trucks go out, hear them pull into the station, in and out, up and down the road. And I always wondered, Google shows you what a fireman is. You watch movies and stuff. You already had an expectation of kind of what that would be. But it sparked my interest. Like, where are they going in the middle of the night? What are they doing? They're getting used to that. What are we doing? So during my senior year, I was still 17. I wasn't quite 18 yet. Uh, just drove over there one day. Went in, said, hey, I'd like to see what's up with this. Uh, I still had almost a year till I turned 18, but they had kind of a junior firefighter program. You couldn't participate in calls or anything, but you could come to the meetings, you could help load hose, you could do training with them, stuff like that. So I got to do that, and that really piqued my interest in the fire service unto itself because I got to see the brotherhood, the camaraderie in it. That really interested me. When I turned 18, I got voted on, became a member. I was there until 2020, I believe. We bumped up to Northwest Arkansas. I'd moved around a lot for my job. I'd got my EMT in the middle of all that. I was a travel EMT, so we bumped around a lot. Uh, Met my now wife while we still lived in Clarksville. She was going to college there in town. Uh, we both packed our stuff at 19, 20 years old. Moved up to Northwest Arkansas for a couple of years. Did a lot of work there. Moved to Texarkana for the same job. Was there for a couple of years, and now we're here in Bryant, just outside of Little Rock, and I've been here ever since. Uh, Member of the Crystal Fire Department. Also volunteer for the Salem Fire Department as well. Work part time a couple other places. I'm a full time medic. I work for an ambulance service there in the city of Little Rock. Busy metro EMS system. We're not fire based, but we are operated by the city. So that helps a lot. We have a really good culture there. The fire departments all have good culture as well. In I want to say it was 2020 is when everything happened with Jessica's family. Uh, Before that point, I understood like put water on fire, fire goes out, cut hole in roof, smoke goes up, right? Like basic caveman stuff. I didn't really understand why there were people that were so bought in. Like I'd been seeing snippets of Justin McWilliams and everybody on Sean Duffy on Facebook, Ryan McCormick on Facebook. I was like, why are these guys so bought into all this? Well, that event occurred, and it really got me thinking that if I would have showed up to an event like that, to a call like that, I wouldn't have been ready. Uh, they were both, I'm not going to delve too deep into it, but both of her family members were found within 6 feet of the back door. And knowing what I know now, that was absolutely, and what I learned then, that was absolutely inexcusable, you know. But moving forward from that, it really piqued my interest, and I just took a nosedive head first off of a cliff into the fire service world and figured out just how much I didn't know. Uh, and from there, it's been growth, exponential growth, and I'm thankful for that. She's grown as well. That's part of why she understands why I'm into this so much, why there's so much passion, and she enjoys it. She enjoys getting to watch me be passionate about something, which is awesome. But that's kind of my little story of where I was, how I got here.
Yeah, dude, I gotta tip my hat to those guys that took you in at 17 and helped you like get into the job. You know what I mean? There's a lot of fire safety, especially society nowadays, when the kids come around or there's people that want to do just a walk up tour, that some departments, some firefighters are just like roll their eyes, like, ugh, like this kid again, you know, like we don't really want to do this. We're comfortable in our recliners and we just want to hang out in our own little shack and not be bothered. But those firefighters with you being 17, like took you, it seems like they took you under the wing. You had a pretty good experience and you were just bought in right from then on out, right?
Yeah, it was the brotherhood, the camaraderie, just the laughs. They were able to just sit around a table, just talk about the job and laugh. Man, it was something I hadn't seen before. Uh, I got to do a lot of learning there too. Humble beginnings create great things, right? Very small department, 200-300 calls a year. Uh, had a couple of experiences there that would help shape who I am today. One was, I'm going to raise my hand and say I was a punk ass kid that thought I knew it all and got knocked
Yeah.
down, and it was a
I've
good
been,
thing. I needed
I
it.
was that guy. Yeah.
Uh, the other is we were using very old aluminum bottle 2200 Scots, very old back failure. One fire, we were making a push down a hallway in hoarder conditions. Start hearing a pass device go off, turn around, my partner's air pack had failed. The very next fire, the same thing happened to my captain. We were inside committing a search during an attic fire. Uh, Pair of pass device going off, turned around, and his mask was stuck to his face. He had an air pack failure. And thankfully, none of those, we weren't very far from the door, but it was another thing of, if that would have really been some stuff, I wouldn't have been prepared for it. Thankfully, we were, around a corner through a door both times and able to just bring them back out. But it's little things like that, little experiences. And that'll tie into, it's not if, but when, even for little baby departments with stuff like that. Like I said, we were 180, 200 calls a year, maybe 5 or 6 structure fires a year.
That's pretty wild, dude. I mean, yeah, I hate that all those events happened to you, right? With the bottle failures and everything that's happened with your wife. But I feel like that is what has developed your why and how man, your desire to learn more based off those events is it's tragic, but at the same time, you know, the fire service and the people that you will serve in the future are going to benefit from those events. You know, like if you're going to try to find any positive light out of all those, you know, especially with what happened with your wife's family, I mean, I think you have this like little mission to make sure that doesn't happen on your watch.
That's that's where I come from usually with it. And I don't want to be that guy that says, "Oh, that's not going to happen on my watch," because it still can. Sometimes it doesn't matter how ready you are. It's one of those things that if it's God's will that it's happened, it's going to happen.
Hmm.
But what we can do is do everything we can to be ready as we can be for that, and try and prevent it. Be aggressive with our nozzle operations. Be aggressive with our engine operations. Be aggressive with our search. And that's a bad word. Someone's going to come smack my hand for saying aggressive. I know it. But we'll kind of roll into beliefs that I've acquired from working in these small towns and these low staffed areas. Is being aggressive while understanding the limitations of your manpower. Right. Uh, we have a very strong culture of, go with three, work as six. Everybody's doing the job of two people. The engineer is not only running the pump, he's throwing ladders or shucking hose at the door. The nozzleman's not only flowing water, he's searching out in front of him as he goes down the hallway. The hoseman's not only just your hoseman back behind him, he's got the tick. He's acting as the officer. He's guiding and directing. He's searching too. If the nozzleman gets to a stopping point in a corner, if we're close to the fire room, he might go close the door, isolating doors as we go down the hallway. Just little things like that we can do to do more with less.
Yeah, I remember that reminds me of of course, I'm gonna bring social media in because for one, that's how we met, but that's where, all the world's problems are not solved, but everybody thinks they're going to solve them. But there was one dude, we were talking about transitional attack, or, according to blue card, like the quick hit, hitting an exterior hose line while other people like make entry from another side. And you and I had different statements on this but we didn't realize, or I didn't realize initially, the perspectives, right? You, like you said, like you operate with limited manpower. Your next engine is probably several minutes away versus me. I live in, or I operate in a suburban fire department where before I even get my size up out, there's several apparatus lining up and ready to go to work where I can just be like, oh yeah, these guys are going to perform a transitional attack. These guys are going to go in and do hose stretch, and then these guys are going to do ventilation over here. And I just have so many resources piling up right at the beginning. Versus you have to prioritize what's important.
Yeah, and our priorities listed in our SOGs go in this order: water on the fire, get people out. Nothing matters until those two tasks have been assigned. And of course, immediate rescues take priority over water on the fire, right? Immediate life safety rescues, of course, that's obvious stuff. But in our SOGs, it is outlined: water on the fire is number one. Number two is searching for life removal victims. I can't remember. I think it was in the book of Andy. You can save with a search, and you save 100 with a hose line.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful. I was just talking with John Velez from Tailboard Misfits about that. About you obviously, if you have your known rescues, you know what you're doing. You're going straight into rescue mode. You're going to affect, VES, whatever that looks like. Trying to get as much information on where that person could be inside the structure. But yeah, like you're saying, if you don't know at the initial arrival, yeah, definitely get a hose line stretch, get a water on the fire, make that space more tenable. But then your tactic also, like you're saying, is to search at the same time, like probably a rapid aggressive primary search to get those victims out as fast as you possibly can. And you're a student of the craft, right? You've been reading Firefighter Rescue Survey, but you also speak from experience about people being within the path of egress, within feet of a door or window. Is that how you guys train?
Yeah. So, we're not going to stick a victim there every single time, right? But, if you look at the numbers, path of egress is a major point. Where's the hoseman going? Where's the nozzle go?
The path of ingress or egress.
Path of ingress or egress, straight to the fire.
Straight to the fire.
You're going inverse of the flow path of the fire. Where are you probably going to find most of your victims? If you think about human psychology and how it works, I smell smoke. My smoke alarms are going off. What's going on?
Investigate.
They're going to be somewhere in that path between the fire and the front, if they're not stuck in a room somewhere, right? And the numbers of the rescue survey reflect that.
Yeah, no, I do. I think that's great, man. And I like that you guys don't have this excuse, because the way I've been trained, and it's nobody's fault, it's just how some fire academies are run, is they either have the propane prop of the couch on fire or the bed on fire that we all know where it is inside the concrete building, or there's a scenario where they have an orange cone and they're like, this is the fire, go put the fire out, and then maybe conduct some mediocre search or something like that. But it's always around fire extinguishment, where you're trying to do it all. You are doing it all at the same time. And I think I love that that's happening nowadays in the fire service. There's that very famous article that's out right now with Sean Duffy, Scott Thompson, and others about the 2 in, 2 out. Like, you guys can't even do that, right? With your limited manpower.
Yeah, our average staffing last year, because we pull numbers every year that we publish into the public. Uh, our average staffing last year was 3 24/7. We're a volunteer house; we don't get paid. We have a live-in crew, and volunteers will go day staff, night staff, work shifts, stuff like that. Uh, but just because we have 3 people, that's not an excuse, right? I'm not going to roll up with 3 people and tell the mother of a child, "Hey, I can't go get your kid. OSHA says I can't go inside yet." Tell me how that's going to go, right? It's not going to go. If you're working in the fire service and you would listen to a directive like that and sit outside a house and tell them that you can't go get her child, get out. Just pack your stuff, put it in the locker, get out. You have no place here.
Yeah, and you tell a mother on the front porch that you're not going in, she's going to go in for you, and then now you have 2 victims instead of 1.
Exactly.
So
There's an expectation, right? The movies did it for us. We've earned over the hundreds of years that the fire service has been in place. We've earned the trust of the public, right? There's not a song out there's not a song released that says fuck the fire department. We have the public's trust. That's something that can very quickly be lost. Uh, Not even just in the local area, at a nationwide level. All it takes is one news article, and it gets hit up by like Fox or CNN. Someone pushes it out of Washington Times, something like that. Everybody reads it, and they're like, "Hey, I wonder if my fire department would do something like this. Would my fire department tell me no, they're not going to get my kid because they don't have 4 people? Would my fire department just it steamrolls from there?" I can't remember who. I think it was Justin McWilliams again that was hitting on that the other day. It takes one time. It takes one incident to blackball all of us. And accountability is coming, whether we want it or not. I think it's a good thing that accountability comes. The standard that's set is, I think, below where it needs to be, just across the board. There's a big push right now, too. Justin's a part of that, working on IFSA manuals, trying to develop another educational curriculum around that teaches proactive, data-based, and experience-based tactics and considerations and skills instead of crawl on all fours, keep your hand on the wall stuff. But there's a big push right now for accountability, but paired with that is proactive education. I was talking the other day to one of my buddies that works out in New Mexico, and pretty much what I said is I hate after action reviews where someone says, "I wish we would have trained," but I don't think that should ever be said. You should be training so much that you're confident. You're beyond confident. You can do stuff with your eyes closed. You can do it backwards, forwards, upside down, reverse. There's a lot of instructors that do a really good job of it. I can't quote any of the numbers or anything, but whenever your heart rate gets up real high, you go into rescue mode, you go into recall mode, lizard brain, whatever they want to call it. And if you're not subconscious with those skills, you're just going to revert back to what you were taught in the academy, which is crawl on all fours, hand on the wall. I can't see anything. I don't get the middle of the room. Just little stuff like that. Just train until it's subconscious to you.
yeah, brother, I've seen that firsthand, man. I was in the right seat on a call. It was a basement fire, and the entire structure was charged full of smoke, and we were assigned to go up to floor 2 to conduct a primary search. And I was like, "Fire's in the basement, man. We're good. Let's go knock this out. Let's go get the search done." Take my crew to floor 2. And I talk about this all the time. It's like, you can put something over your face mask to simulate a blacked out or smoke filled environment. And a lot of times we resort to just closing our eyes, right, to increase our tactile, sensory, and all that kind of stuff. But there's something that happens in your brain when you are in a true IDLH, charged with smoke, real smoke, not fake smoke machines, and you can't see your hand in front of your face. There's something that happens psychologically where your heart rate goes up. The stakes the stakes are real in this point. You can't call timeout. You can't rip your mask off. And we went up there to knock out a search, and you can tell what our level of training and experience was in this situation because guys, including myself, I had the tick. We were crawling around on hands and knees, and we were shouting for each other, and we were disoriented, and it was a single family home floor too. It wasn't no McMansion or anything like that, but it was one of those things where we hadn't trained enough on it as a crew, and we felt extremely uncomfortable. And I agree with what you're saying is we need to teach that stuff more.
If you make the base level of the training that you're providing the level that you want them to perform at all the time, you can only go up from there, right? If we start way down here in the bottom of the basement, what are they going to revert back to? If you never teach somebody to crawl, if you teach them to search upright, whatever position that may be, I don't want to delve way far into that. Some people can't move in the tripod and stuff like that, but upright is way more tactile for you, right? Unless you're getting pushed down to the floor. And I don't like delving way deep in the tactics and stuff, but what you were talking about with the smoke and the IDLH, we're huge believers in live fire training. Huge believers in it. The hottest fire you're in should be in the training building, not in the house, right? Doing the stuff with RFT, we're huge believers in using real smoke. It's not any smoke that's going to render you unconscious. It's not going to knock you down. It's hay smoke. But if you freak out and go to rip your mask off, you're going to catch a whiff of smoke and you're going to have to put it back on.
Oh, yeah. Well, you mentioned it. Let's talk about it, brother. What's RFT?
So that's rural fire tactics. Back in last year, a group of us were traveling around the country, going to conferences all over the place, and we were picking up a whole lot from a lot of these guys. I had a conversation with a couple of good friends I have from across the country, and kind of came up with the idea and the notion of a lot of these small departments. There's no one delivering skills, tactics, and just knowledge that's tailored to what they're seeing, right? And it's not a shot at anybody. If you're a big city fireman, you have big city experience, right? Some of them started out as volunteers when they were younger, but a lot of the guys that are going around teaching don't very often have the experience of being by themselves for 15 minutes on a fire. Don't have the experience of, having 8 guys for 2 hours at a working fire and still having to do all the tasks, right? No one was out delivering targeted, per se, I think it's the best way to put it, information and knowledge to these small departments, and doing it at an affordable price point. All right. I've spent most of my time in the fire service in small departments that don't have very good budgets. I understand what it's like. It's a big deal, and we take a lot of it. We take it to heart when people ask us to come in, because they're small departments that don't have a budget, and they're probably dropping a quarter or half of their training budget to bring us in. And to me, that means a lot down in the heart that people are seeing what we're doing. And want to be, I don't want to necessarily say a part of it, but they want that knowledge, that difference brought in, see different viewpoints, I think is the best way to put it. There's a great group of guys all across the country, big departments, small departments. You're one of them, of course, up there in the metro area. Manny Barajas, San Antonio. He just did his last shift on the Ocho. Poor guy, he's going to the ambulance side. I salute him for that. We got James Cook, JJ. James is down in Decatur, Texas. JJ works for DeKalb County at Fighting 16s. Justin Levy, he was at Berwyn Heights for a few years. He's now up in Missouri. Of course, we got JP. And then there's just Noah is the last one. He's down at Bear County ESD 2. Yeah, Bear County ESD 2. And then there's just groups of guys, buddies that I've met across the country, just traveling, hanging out with, that I talk to regularly, that come help when they want or come help when they can. We've got a big deal of benefit conference coming up in July in Little Rock, that the entire crew is going to be there. Gabe Blue's coming up from Port Lavaca as well. That's going to be a really good time. It's rural reality of search. Really hits on searching off the hose line, like we talked about, isolating doors, and then just searching an entire structure with just 2, working on different skills, tactics, window initiated stuff, targeting livable space, just the basics, basic overviews of search with some of the reality of low staffing sprinkled into it. That pairs off with forcible entry, ladders, everything of the sort.
So who helped design these courses? Was it just something that you guys all got from going to different conferences and put it together based on the type of jurisdiction you respond, the type of calls you go to?
So it's a group collaborative effort with everything we do. I'm a huge believer in multiple viewpoints whenever we're doing something like this, right? I don't go and grab stuff from other people's classes and just throw it in mine because I heard it somewhere, right?
Hmm.
I don't want to do anything unless we put it to use, and that's what we do. Uh, I'm not a huge believer because it's not a copyright thing, but it's kind of a copy paste. I don't like doing that. I'm not going to show you how to do something, and none of the guys are either. They're all believers in it too. We're not going to show you how to do something unless it's something that we do, right? I want to know that I've done this at Fires and it works at Fires, and they've done it and it works for them too. It's little things like that. Like, yeah, we go to conferences. That's part of the deal with the guys is a couple of times a year, a bunch of us will get together. We'll go to a couple conferences as students and continue to be students. But until we've brought that information back, sifted through it, and put it to use at our firehouses and on our fires and our calls, it's not any good to us to take it and show it if we haven't vetted it or shown that it works for our environment, right? So it's a group collaborative effort on most of the stuff. Everything gets shared out. Everybody drops notes. Everybody drops nuggets. It's a beautiful thing, man. Especially whenever we all get on at the same time and just start throwing pieces at each other. It's a beautiful thing to watch happen. I'm also a huge believer in I hate PowerPoint. I'm ADHD. I'll drop that now. I'm sure most people who've met me have figured that out. But I hate PowerPoints. Like, I think the longest PowerPoint presentation I've got for any of these classes is like 45 minutes. But this is a blue collar job.
Yes.
Especially whenever you're doing the job of 6 people with 3, like we have to do a lot of the time. It's blue collar. You're going to get down. You're going to get dirty. You're going to have to work and work and work and work. You're going to be beat when you get done. And that's how our training classes go. We had a really great time up in Missouri. Kyle Moore and the crew at Central Crossing Fire Protection District, man, they have a great setup. They have a good culture. There was almost 30 firemen from around Missouri and Arkansas that came up there and had a great time. Man, at the end of the day, most of them said we're whooped, but we had a great time. And that's the way I think training should be. I think you should be whooped at the end of it. If you're not whooped, what are you doing? You're not pushing yourself.
There's something to be said too about pushing yourself to a certain limit, but doing it with people that you love and you work with, right?
Yeah.
Like I can go outside and destroy myself in the garage or whatever in the gym and still feel good about myself. But man, when you're doing that as like a small company or unit or a crew, and you could lean on each other, and those times you're just getting absolutely beat. But then when you've accomplished it, you can sit back and just all look at the hard work you put in, and you just build such stronger relationships. And I think you notice that in some of the in my department anyways, we have some busy houses and we have some slower houses. The busy houses have such a tighter bond than a lot of the slower houses because they struggle more than everybody else.
Yeah. Suffering builds brotherhood, right? And that's, I think, anybody just about in any department will say that the slow houses just kind of do their own thing, right? That's been my experience anyway, and I'm sure many others as well. You go to your departments, you go to your houses that are busy. They're running 12, 13, 14 calls in a 24. They're going to a bunch of fires. They're going to a bunch of wrecks. They're going to be more tight knit. That's the firehouse where you're going to find laughter in the bay, a table in the back of the bay with recliners. And those recliners are usually going to be empty because they're going to be up running calls.
Yeah.
But in the time between calls, they're going to be spending the time in the back of the bay as a team, as a crew, solving the world's problems around the table. You don't see that in a lot of slower firehouses.
Yeah, I got to tell you, man. I know I have an open invitation to come out there. I was supposed to come out there last year, but the birth of my baby girl 2 months early kind of derailed my attempt to come out to the First Stand Fire Conference. And then I was going to come out, and dude, this resonated with me so much. You said, just come by the firehouse and we'll smoke some cigars and just shoot the shit and have a good time. And on top of that, I told you that I was working on a presentation and I wanted to teach, and you're like, well, come by the firehouse, man, and teach it to us, and we'll let you know what's good and what's bad and all this. I'm like, whoa, like this, like openness and lack of judgment and just willingness to just make each other better. I don't know, like I don't know if that's something you created or something that you were brought up in, but it's actually kind of rare in the fire service, man.
That my father was a very humble man. My mother is a great person. I say was, he still is a very humble man, like he passed away or something. He's still kicking, believe it or not. He taught me it takes 1 second out of your day to be nice to somebody. It takes 2 seconds out of your day to give them respect. It takes them 3 seconds to lose your respect.
Hmm.
Right? So give them 1 second to be nice to them. Give them 2 seconds to give them your respect, and then give them 3 seconds to lose your respect. Right? So I believe when you walk in the door, you've done enough. You've brought up enough courage, especially like at the volunteer firehouse. You brought up the courage to come up here on a meeting night when there's 20 people up here and say, "I want to be here." Well, cool, man. You got my respect. You worked up the courage to come up here and be like, "Hey, man, what's up? Can I come do this?" Sure. I'll shake your hand, walk you around the firehouse. I did I did something for blue collar firemen. They're getting ready to do some stuff. A little article based on some of my experiences that I had. Day one, as the officer, the senior man in that house, at a paid house or even at the volunteer house, if you're the officer that meets this guy or this girl, you have however long they're there for their first day. If it's their first shift at a paid house or their first 8 hour training day at a volley house, you can shape the rest of their career based on what your actions and what you say. You can shape their viewpoint of the fire service and shape the rest of their career from that point. If a rookie walks in and you say, "Hey man, there's the fucking sink, there's the coffee maker, figure it out," and you sit in the recliner like a turd, that ain't it, man. That ain't right. That kid walks in the door, you should be excited that he's there. He just went through the academy. He bit the dust, went through the academy because he wanted to be there. He passed or she passed. Get up out of the chair, give them the respect and the time of day to shake their hand, show them around the firehouse. This is their new home. And that rookie, that night, that first night, could be the person that decides whether you go home or go home in a pine box.
Man,
And
that's
that's
powerful,
a
dude.
belief that I hold very dear. And you know, it's just as simple as that. That rookie's the third or fourth man on your truck. They could be the one that has to drag you out of the fire. They could be the one that has to help you push that hallway. What are they going to do? They're not going to push themselves for you if they walk in the door and you're like, "Hey man, the coffee maker's over there. Go make me some coffee." They're not they're not going to respect you. No matter how much they have to outwardly show that they do, internally they're not going to respect you.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely important point from a culture standpoint in the fire service. Is you're the first encounter that these new men or women have coming into the fire service, and you are a direct representation of your organization and how you're going to serve the community. And when you, like you said, treat them like they're a turd or they're below you, beneath you, you just started their first day of looking for another job or another firehouse to go work at. Like you did a piss poor job at representing the fire service as a whole. You were too selfish and lazy to get up out of the chair, like you said. And now you've set a precedent for that rookie to be like, oh, well, this is what the fire service is. So now they decide, am I going to be a turd like this person when the next new person comes in and I'm in the recliner? Probably, right? Because it's just how the trend goes. If that's what you were brought up in, you're probably going to do the same thing. And yeah, man, it's we're letting these new people down. Like they could be so inspired by your leadership and mentorship early in your career to where they want to get the department's name tattooed across their chest because they're so bought in to the fire service. And imagine what type of firefighter you're going to develop when you show just that, take that 2 minutes to just show appreciation for them walking through the door, like you said.
Yeah, man, it's the 1 2 3. It's what Dad always taught me is the 1 2 3 method. Just give them the respect, man. They're here. It doesn't even, that was more of a paid firehouse. It wasn't even the volley house. They show up to the meeting. Everybody kind of looks at them and side eyes them. And what are you? Who are you? What are you doing here? No, someone new. If it could be a member of the public, It could be a U.S. Senator that's just in street clothes that's come by to see the firehouse. It doesn't matter, right? It's, hey man, this is welcome to the fire department. This is our station. These are our trucks. What can we do for you? Little bitty things like that. And I think a lot of us have forgotten that of the people who truly sign our checks, right? It's not HR. It's not the account manager. The people who truly sign your checks are the ones who lay their heads down at night and put their kids in their beds and sleep well, knowing that the fire department, or thinking in some cases that the fire department's going to come get them if something happens. Those are the people that truly sign your paycheck. And they're the people that truly have the capability to take your paycheck away if it comes to stuff like that, with the accountability and everything there. But that's who your duty's to. Your duty's not to a city manager. Your duty's not to a mayor. Your duty's not even to the fire chief. Mm-hmm. Your duty, and the reason that you exist and the reason that you're there, is because fires happen in residential and commercial structures where people keep their stuff and they keep themselves. That's why the fire department exists. And I think if we all just got back to realizing that that's why we're here, it would be a better place.
Yeah, beautifully said, man. And I often say that, no matter what your fire department's culture is, like it starts and ends with you, man. If the culture isn't how you wanted it to be when you first got hired, like, you can change it, man. You can be a leader even if you're not in a promoted position, right? Like, even if you have more bad leaders, if you worked for really good leaders, you just take what you've learned from both those types of leaders and implement it into how you're going to help bring up the future of the fire service.
Man, something I am going to hit on, a learning experience that I had, and this will resonate probably with a lot of the younger folks that listen to this. If they do, don't let your passion bleed over into anger and frustration. That's something that I still struggle with a little bit today. I'm much better than I was a few years ago, but I would get and it wasn't even just coming back from a conference. It was just in general. We'd be on a topic and someone would say something off par with what, everything else that was being taught. And it was anger and frustration. And I worked myself up over it for so many years. Here recently, I've figured out how to gain some tact and change some delivery and things of that nature. But if there's any nugget that I want someone my age, or younger, someone brand new getting into the fire service, is it's okay to be passionate. It's expected to be passionate at most firehouses. Don't let that passion bleed over into anger that will get you alienated by your peers. Let that anger stay internal. Let the passion show through your actions that you take on the training ground, on the fire ground, at the firehouse. If you're a little bit of a senior guy, you've been there 5, 6, 7 years, because that's our new senior guy, right? We don't have 15-year senior guys anymore, unless you're Wichita, FDNY, Indy, big departments like that. But if you're that, 4 or 5-year guys are our new senior men. If you're that 4 or 5-year guy like I am, and you have a rookie that comes in, they're going to be intimidated by, the captain, the red hat, the white hat, or the chiefs. They're probably going to look to you, right? And they're going to mirror everything. It's like having a little 2-year-old again, right? It's like having a little toddler running around the house. It's going to mirror every single thing you do. If you sit in the couch all day, guess what they're going to do? Guess what my kid does? He sits in the couch all day with me. If I go outside and work out, guess what he wants to do? He wants to go outside and work out. If I get up in my truck and go somewhere, guess what my kid wants to do? He wants to get in my truck and go somewhere. Guess what your rookie's going to want to do? The same exact shit. If you go outside and work out, if you've taken them under their wing, guess what they're going to want to go do? They're going to want to go work out. If you're doing driver training, they're going to be like, hey, can I drive? I want to learn how to drive. If you're doing hose stretches, hey, look, it's a continuous cycle. And that's the best way that I've found in my brain to work it out, is having a rookie firefighter is like having a toddler. They're going to mirror everything you do. They're going to ask you why every 15 seconds.
Yeah. No, I love it, dude. Actually, I love when they ask why, because it keeps you on your toes. Make sure you actually know what you're talking about. If you're like, hey, rookie, we do this with this hose line and this occasion all the time. Well, why? Because I said so. It helps you Corley Moore talked about it, right? I forget where he got it from, but he said if you want to teach something and you want to teach it to a bunch of firefighters, teach it to a 5-year-old first.
Yep.
Because like you said, those are going to be the ones that are asking 100 questions in the middle of your presentation, taking you off your flow, taking you off your game. And you got to be ready to answer those questions. If you can't answer the questions of a 5-year-old, then don't be prepared to teach them to a bunch of firefighters.
Yeah. And man, like I said, that's the best way I found to equate having a rookie, but even if it's a volunteer or paid house, it's like having a little 2 or 3-year-old following you around. The only words they know are yes, no, why, and they copy everything you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just goes right into lead by example. But I definitely want to touch on something real quick, man. If someone mocks you for being young and not having enough experience, well, that's all temporary, right? Like you're going to gain more wisdom and experience, but you're already so dialed in and bought in. It doesn't matter what those more senior, maybe lazy firefighters are saying, because every day you're showing up and putting in the work and you're leading by example to where hopefully those new people, those people that are mirroring the senior firefighters flock to you instead of, some of those less dialed in, less into the job firefighters.
Man, and we're blessed. Man, there's been times that a few of us younger guys have been in command of fires, and it's just a simple attic fire. And chief walks up to an air pack on and says, "You're doing great." Walks in. We have a strong culture from top to bottom, and it's a blessing in disguise. Truly, it is. He believes in learning by experience. If you pulled up and you're the officer off the first or second due pump, and you're doing good work, he's going to go to work. He wants to go play. None of our chiefs have clean white helmets.
Man, I hope you realize how rare that is.
It's easier in a small department. I will say that it's easier in a small department, but still, it's a blessing, man.
No, that's cool to see that the upper echelon, the white helmets, let you stay in charge, let you stay in command, and they just go in and they want to play, like you said. I think that's pretty cool.
It keeps them in touch too. I think that's why our culture is the way it is it keeps everybody in touch from top to bottom, because you never know. That's a cool thing I think about the volunteer service is you never know. You may be pushing a hallway with your battalion chief tomorrow night. You may be pushing a hallway with the chief of the department. You may be pulling a victim out with the chief of the department tomorrow night. You just never know. And that's even more important in a volunteer firehouse to have camaraderie up and down than it is just like truck 15's the shit, truck 14 sucks. You got to have a camaraderie throughout the house, and that's not to say everybody's going to get along, but you got to train together. I mean, even at the paid houses, man, the different companies got to train together too at times. But in our world, you got to be able to work with anybody.
Yeah, it's nice to have a little friendly competition, but at the same time, you're all on the same team, and it's better. I honestly love the fact that certain departments do like multi-company trainings, because too often you're just kind of doing, I understand brilliance and the basics and you're out on the pad and pulling a hose line and throwing a ladder and stuff. But how often do we simulate, hey, okay, you're second arriving, you're third arriving engine, now go,
Well, and it's like another deal for us is there's not a very strong truck culture in this area once you get outside the city, right? There's not a lot of people going to roofs. We have the only ladder company in the county that's outside the city. That's regularly put to use, I should say. There are other ladders, but it's the only one that regularly goes and gets put to use as a truck. Most of the time, most of the engines in the county are set up as what you guys over there would call squats. They're set up to do a little bit of everything. They got roof vent saws. They got extra ladders on them, K-12s, extrication gear, all kinds of stuff. Pretty much set up as a squad company. A lot of the time, we're operating as the truck crew second in pump, second in engine, I should say, better terminology. But second in engine operates as the truck. You're either if you got 4, you're splitting crew. If you got 3, you're probably just digging a search.
Yeah, I think that's the majority of the fire service, man. I don't think, especially like in the rural and the suburban setting, you can argue that there's definitely a need for a true truck company, but I think with limited manpower resources, and especially a funding or a budget, there's not enough dollars in the piggy bank to say, hey, we're going to have a true truck company that's just going to run the way they do. Especially like you're saying in the rural setting where your second due is 10 minutes out.
Yeah.
We're not waiting. We're not waiting to vent and search.
And you
Yeah.
can't wait, right? Those are fireground tasks. Ventilation, fire attack, and search are the three tasks that can't wait. Everything else comes secondary.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the three things that if you need them, they can't wait.
Yeah, man. Well, I got to ask you, man, because we already pointed out, and anybody watching the video can tell that you're younger in the fire service, which I told you before we started recording. I'm so jealous, man. I was in my mid 30s before I realized how big the fire service truly was. I didn't get outside of my own organization until then. So, if anybody wants to criticize you for that, they have no leg to stand on, man. You're a young dude and you're so bought in. Uh, I want to talk to you about mentors. You mentioned your dad already, but do you have mentors that have helped you stay on this path, or somebody that you could bounce a lot of these thoughts and ideas off of?
Man, I've got a couple mentors, I want to call them, that are around, closer to my age. More buddies than anything that we just bounce ideas off of. Uh, of course, you're one of them I call pretty regularly. The one of the bigger mentors that really shaped who I really am today. There's two of them, and it was up in Northwest Arkansas. Is Chief David Orr at the Gravett Fire Department. Really took me in and took a punk kid and turned it into someone who was passionate and gave a shit but knew where to draw the line. Was firm but not condescending when doing it too. That spoke a lot to me. They saw something in me that I didn't, because I was so frustrated at that point in time. I was getting ready to get out of the service. Uh, I couldn't get along with anybody, and I didn't realize that it was me that was the problem. Uh, he brought me in, took me under his wing, and was kind yet firm in showing, the issues and where they were coming from. And I couldn't be more thankful for that. Over the last 3 or 4 years, Chief McCormick has been a big influence. Uh, he's been in my ear a lot about a lot of things. Uh, Learned some really, really strong lessons while working with him. Our chief over at Crystal is another big one. He's really big on learning your lessons when they come. His favorite question is, well, did we teach you that when something happens or if something happens? And then he doesn't go any further than that. Did we teach you that? Okay. And then you can take that and learn your lesson from it. And it works.
Yeah.
It worked well for me. It's worked well for many others. Uh, a lot of folks say that they have just one or two big mentors. Truthfully, man, everybody around you is a mentor, whether you realize they are or not, whether it's a good mentor or a bad mentor. I've got mentors that I'm not going to name drop, but I've got mentors that I watch to learn what exactly not to do, how not to act, how not to interact with people. Those are mentors too. Whether you think they are or not, is it someone that you watch and you learn things from? And I'm sure you've got them too, and everybody else does. People that they watch to learn what not to do.
There's a couple people I'm thinking of already right now while you're saying it.
Yeah, and that's a revelation that a lot of people haven't had. Is mentors are just these guys that I learned good things from. No, you've watched people and seen bad things and gone, man, I'm not going to talk to my rookie like that, or man, I'm not going to talk that way on the radio. You learn things like that too, and they're still mentors.
Man, I've never heard anybody say it like that, man. That's absolutely beautiful. I got to give you a shout out, man, because obviously the first time we met, I was running the Fit Fire Fortitude page. It was fairly new, and I was just like putting a little bit of content here and there. And I forget what we were talking about, man, but you reached out to me just out of the blue, messaged me, and we were just doing small talk. And you actually invited me to come out to the first In Fire conference and actually got a ticket for me to come out. And I mentioned earlier, I couldn't make it because of my own family obligations, but you were the first person to tell me straight up. And I was like, because I told you, I was like, I don't think I'm worthy of coming out there, man. I think you should give that ticket to somebody else. And you were like, you said you are too into the job for you to not come out here and be a part of what's going on at this conference. And that really resonated with me, man, because it gave me the confidence to continue on the path that I was on. Because, you get a lot of good and negative feedback the more you put yourself out there, as you already know with RFT and all that stuff. You deal with imposter syndrome and all that. And I gotta ask you, man, do you just have a innate, like, ability to know a person's character when you meet? Because you said you reach out to people all across the country and have these conversations, and you built up this network. Do you just have a feeling about people, or is it just your natural desire to just talk to people?
Man, whether it's a good conversation or a bad conversation, you can always take something from it. Uh, I went through a lot of things in high school, with being, pushed out, bullied, messed with, screwed with, kind of outcast. Besides my tight knit group of friends from sports and stuff like that, that I would rather give people the time of day and then prove me wrong than just go, man, I don't know about that person. I'm just not going to talk to them. Because there's been a few times I've been surprised. Someone that I thought would be just a dirtbag, man, I sit down and actually talk with them, and they become vulnerable, and they're just struggling with a lot themselves, right? Like someone that you might think is just a dirtbag, crap fireman, you actually sit down and talk to them, man, they're struggling with finances. Man, their grandma just died. Man, their dad's got cancer. He's in hospital sick. Give people the benefit of the doubt to sit down and talk to them, whether you know them personally or whether it's across the country.
Yeah, that reminds me of one of the senior guys in my organization. Everybody looks upon him like he's just a dirtbag. He's lazy. He doesn't want to do anything. But just watching him on specific calls, we run more EMS than anything, right? But like watching his work ethic, it's there. But he's one of those people that don't go above and beyond. But you can tell he cares. And he's been on the job probably almost 20 years. And I asked him, I was like, when you got on the job, dude, were you like so fired up to be a firefighter? Were you really into the job? And he goes, absolutely, man. He goes, I'm a third generation firefighter. I I I was riding fire trucks as a kid, and the only thing I ever wanted to do was be a firefighter. And I was like, dude, what happened? What happened to you? Like straight up asked him because he knows what everybody says about him, and I forget exactly what he said, but basically he said people gave up on me, man. Like I was that guy that went out to conferences and tried to bring something back. And I joined, the tech rescue team and tried to expand my career and be someone of value. But then I got criticized. Was told to keep my mouth shut. And, same people, when you come back from a conference, they tell you just, we don't do that shit here. And his flame kind of burned out. And it was so disappointing to see, man. And, it was one of those things where I looked at him and I was like, man, I want to find a way to reignite that passion and flame in you, at least for the last part of your career. I don't know when he's going to retire, but I changed my perspective on him. And like you're saying, just hear that person out. Like you don't know what their story is. You don't know why that person might ride the recliner or whatever, like you don't know until you actually have a conversation with that person. It's about building relationships, right?
Yeah. One of my favorite people that, and it's just, I met him at a conference and reached out to him, and we talk on a pretty decent basis now. It's Chief Riley, uh, Dennis Riley, for those that
Yeah.
don't know his last name, but he's one of the most down to earth dudes I've ever met. And we met at a conference, hit it off. We were, where were we at? It wasn't First In. It was Oklahoma Fire School. That's the one. We went to Oklahoma Fire School, and he was doing a class there. Met up with him and Sean Duffy at the Fools event. We just sat and talked. And uh, not often, but probably 2 or 3 times a month, we'll text back and forth some. But one of the most down to earth dudes you've ever met. He's been in the fire service, God, I think 40 years.
Yeah.
Still lives what he preaches, works out hard every day, everything like that. Uh, but you just never know who could be the influence that drives you up or down, whichever way it may go. Uh, Something that you got to figure out quick, especially if you're young in the fire service, is pick out who's going to drag you down and kind of pick away from that. Still give them the time of day, hear them out. But if they're dragging you to a place where your flame's going to burn out, you need to stay away from that if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let that negativity pull you into the same pit that they're going to fall into. And if you can, try and help them out of that pit if they'll hear you. This is a brotherhood, right? I can't remember who posted it the other day, but everybody says the word brother. What do they mean by it?
Mm-hmm.
If you see someone falling down in a dark place, if they're in a pit, man, it's your job to try and pull them out of that. If they won't hear you, if they won't talk to you, well, we've got avenues for that. It's time to pass it up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've got employee action plans, we've got employee assistance plans, in-house counseling, out-of-house counseling. Mental health is a huge deal. I recently had a struggle with some mental health issues. I didn't recognize that I was burnt out, or I didn't want to admit that I was burnt out, and it cost me a lot. Took it and learned from it. God, things have been so much better since that happened. Just mentally, I found myself mentally in a place I didn't need to be, and was finally able to recognize that, thanks to the help of some friends that noticed that something was off. You know, they say the word brother and they mean it. They cared enough to know that something was up. When I got it figured out, man, and God, things have been better. Marriage has been better. The kiddos gotten to see me a lot more. Just everything paired off. We all have a duty to do that, even if it's the dude that I wish would move to another firehouse. Right? Every single day, sometimes I'm like, man, I wish you just transfer. Just, everybody has a dude like that somewhere, some way. If you notice that they're way off down in the dumps, they're just hiding in their room all day, man, there's probably something wrong. It's no matter what they've done before, you still have a little bit of a duty to go back. Hey, man, you good? Is
Yeah.
something wrong? We need to talk. And if they won't talk to you, like I said, man, it's we've got avenues for that. It's time to pass it up.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, man, there's people that I've encountered that I initially wrote off before I even knew who they were, right? It's so easy for us to do that in the fire service, right? If you're not the bought in into the job fireman that's getting in their gear and training every day and working out, then you can easily be like, get out of my fire service, you don't belong here, right? Without any attempt at trying to figure out who that person is, right? We immediately are like, you're not part of the cool kids club, so we're just going to try to force you out. Versus this particular person, you know, I finally got to sit down and have a conversation with them, and they were so intelligent. They knew so much about the job. And it was more the fact that they were just kind of like socially awkward, and they knew they were. So they were just kind of like distancing themselves from all the type A firefighters. And it really resonated with me too when we had a family day, and it was like, hey, bring your family over if they're not doing anything, man. And he has two beautiful kids and a wife that came by, and they love and adore him. And I was like, man, I've been treating this dude or looking at this dude like he was absolute garbage and just a waste of human flesh. And here his family is, they love him and adore him, and actually had a conversation, and he's smart and intelligent. But I brushed him off because he wasn't your typical fireman, you know, type A, get after it kind of guy. He knew the job, but he was just different. And we're so easy to write those people off.
Yeah, and it's important to realize that not everybody's going to share your path. Not everybody's going to share the same story that you have. Not everybody's going to share or show their passion in the same way that you do. That's another hard learned lesson I've had to have myself, with going out and going to these conferences and learning and seeing and coming back home with it. Is not everybody's going to show their passion in the same way. But I think if there's anything we can top all this off with is, I try and do it. You try and do it too. Call and check on your people. You know, I've got guys that I talk to every day. There's some guys I call and check in with once a week, once a month. Just call and check on your people, man. Sometimes you might catch them in a bad spot. I think I caught you
Yeah.
when you guys were headed to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and you needed someone to talk to when all that was going on, and I just lucked out, happened to call you, and you were on your way to the hospital. You know, it's little things like that. Just call and check on your people, man. But Preston, I've enjoyed the heck out of the conversation, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. Obviously, we can go for hours and just have a conversation, but I know you got your kids out there and you're leaving for work in a little bit. But let's close it off with this, man. Like, obviously, you're making such a huge impact, and if anybody wants to be able to reach out to you or know more about RFT, Roll Fire Tactics, how can they get a hold of you?
Man, my inbox is always open to anybody who wants to talk about anything. Facebook's a good way to do it. Messenger's a good way to do it, of course. Instagram. Uh, I'm not going to drop my phone number out there or anything, but if you just hit me up on social media, I mean, 20-year guy, rookie, I don't care who you are. I'm free to talk to anybody anytime. So,
For sure. All right, brother. Well, yeah, my dog's losing her mind. Your kids are going nuts. We'll call it from here, man. So if I appreciate everybody that's listening. Remember, share the show, and that we'll call it. And that's it. Relentless Rejects, episode 10 in the books. Have a good one.